It happened quietly, almost too quietly for a family that lives under the brightest spotlight in the world. But today, inside Buckingham Palace, something broke, something human, something the royal family never lets the world see. When King Charles and Prince William stepped forward, they weren't leaders, weren't symbols, weren't guardians of a centuries-old crown. They were two men holding on to themselves by a thread, and that thread was Catherine. There were no trumpets, no ceremony, no carefully arranged smiles, only a silence, so heavy it felt like the room itself was grieving. And when Charles finally spoke, his voice wasn't royal, it was raw. He didn't talk like a monarch with decades of training. He spoke like a father-in-law watching someone he loves slip away. "She is the heart of this family," he said, not as a statement, but as a confession of pain he could no longer hide. And beside him, William stood with eyes that looked like they hadn't rested in weeks. He thanked the public, but he didn't offer false hope, didn't promise recovery, didn't pretend. "We are hopeful," he whispered, "but we must also prepare." In that moment, millions felt their hearts drop, because that wasn't a royal update. It was a warning wrapped in grief. Vigils began almost instantly. Candles lit outside Windsor. Flowers piled outside Kensington. People cried for a woman they had never met, but somehow loved. And yet, beneath all this emotion, one question kept echoing. What happened? What led to this moment? To understand that, you have to go back to the beginning, back to the disappearance no one could explain. When Catherine vanished from public life, the palace said it was a routine surgery. Just rest, just recovery. But weeks turned into months, and the silence grew into something darker. William began canceling events. Reporters noticed a change first. The tense jaw, the hollow smiles, the way he avoided questions he used to answer effortlessly. And Catherine didn't appear. Not once. Not even by accident. No hospital photos. No quick snapshots. No carefully staged, "she's doing well," images the palace loves to release. She simply vanished, like someone they were desperately trying to protect or hide. Inside newsrooms, whispers grew louder. A hospital worker sent a chilling message to a foreign journalist. "It's worse than they say." Royal aides muttered about complications. Every silent day tightened the knot in the public's chest. And through it all, one person was falling apart from the inside. William. He tried to follow the royal script, tried to show up to events. I tried to smile, but he couldn't hide the truth anymore. The man who was groomed for a crown was now fighting for his wife's life. The pressure broke him in ways the world had never seen. Until one day, he snapped the silence completely. He wrote an email with 5 words to his father. "She deserves more than silence." It wasn't just frustration. It was a rebellion, a direct challenge to the monarchy itself. And when that email leaked, everything exploded. Headlines ran wild. The palace panicked. But William refused to back down. Behind those walls, they begged him to release a staged photo to calm the public. A simple portrait, a smile, something to keep the illusion alive. But William said no. "We're not staging grief," he said. "We're not selling dignity." And while the world scrambled for answers, Catherine grew weaker. Her energy faded. Her voice softened. The sparkle the world adored dimmed. And William watched helplessly, breaking a little more each day. But the biggest shock came from the one man no one expected. King Charles, the monarch of restraint. The man who always protected the institution. The man who never let emotions crack through his posture. Until he saw Catherine. Until he stood beside that hospital bed. Until he felt his own world collapse beneath the weight of what she was facing. He walked out shaken, pale, silent. And that night, he called a meeting that would change the course of the monarchy. And then he said it. "No more hiding. Let the world know what she's fighting." For once, the king wasn't protecting the crown. He was protecting his family. He was choosing truth over tradition, humanity over image. And that decision shattered the palace. No one questioned it at first, but something irreversible had just happened. The palace didn't just shift that day it cracked. And in the days that followed, something even more unexpected unfolded. William, who had spent weeks quietly clashing with his father, suddenly began seeing him through a different lens. Because now, both of them were carrying the same truth, the same fear, the same heartbreak. And for the first time in years, they weren't heirs or monarchs. They were allies. Side by side, they started crafting the announcement, not as royals polishing a press release, but as two men grieving beside a woman they both loved beyond words. Meetings that once pulsed with tension became focused, heavy, careful. Each line was rewritten, every word weighed, not to protect the crown, but to protect Catherine. Behind closed doors, they rehearsed not for perfection, but for stability, because they knew one wrong phrase could spark panic, confusion, or something far worse. Catherine's story would no longer be hidden behind rumors and silence. It would be spoken plainly, courageously, with the weight it deserved. But truth comes with consequences. Inside the palace, fear took on a physical shape. Advisors who once ruled with quiet authority began pushing back. This kind of honesty, this level of transparency, they warned it would open doors a monarchy had kept locked for generations. They feared criticism. They feared precedent. But more than anything, they feared the truth itself. And now the truth was awake, and it wasn't going back to sleep. Because what the public didn't know, what they had never been told, was a chilling timeline behind Catherine's decline. A timeline hidden long, before anyone outside those palace walls even suspected a thing. It started with something routine. A simple blood test in late 2023. The kind she'd done dozens of times without a second thought. But this time, something was off. Small irregularities. Tiny markers that could be brushed aside by anyone refusing to see the bigger picture. Doctors raised quiet concerns. Senior aides urged caution. Let's not cause unnecessary alarm. Stability is the priority. And while those in power debated optics, Catherine was already feeling the truth her body was trying to tell her. Not just tired. Hollow. Her energy drained. Appetite faded. Weight falling. But still she smiled for the cameras. Still she showed up. Still she carried the image of effortless grace. Behind that image she was breaking. She collapsed twice. The first time at a private fundraising dinner. Quickly covered. Quickly dismissed. The second at a children's hospital. One of the places she cherished most. This time she nearly fainted. Security rushed in. Staff shielded her. And still, silence remained the strategy. Doctors pushed harder. More tests, more scans, and then clarity, the kind that stops everything, the kind that changes everything. But the palace didn't stop, not immediately. After the holidays, one advisor urged, let the public think she's resting. Let things stay calm. But illness does not wait for royal schedules or PR campaigns. It advanced quietly, aggressively, ruthlessly. While the monarchy debated headlines or body, was fighting a battle none of them were prepared to confront. William saw what others ignored. He begged her to slow down, begged aides to rethink the silence. But by then it was too late. The image of the perfect royal family had already been set. Photos were planned, videos scheduled, narratives crafted, and behind all of it cracks split wider with every passing day. Doctors panicked. Advisors argued. Some insisted the public deserved honesty. Others feared the monarchy wouldn't survive two major figures battling illness at the same time. So they buried the truth not out of cruelty, but fear. They told themselves it was temporary, that treatment could stay private, that everything would be revealed when the time was right. But cancer doesn't wait for the right time. And Catherine's illness was already slipping beyond control. Inside the palace, trust decayed. Advisors whispered behind closed doors. Questions rose that no one dared voice aloud. Had they protected the crown at the cost of the woman holding it together? And while they argued, Catherine made a decision that would change everything. She would speak for herself. No palace statement. No polished speech. No PR strategy. Just Catherine, alone, in a quiet garden, delivering a truth so raw, so human, that it froze the world in place. For 94 seconds, a royal became a woman facing the unthinkable. She confirmed the surgery, confirmed the cancer, confirmed the chemotherapy, her voice steady but her eyes carrying a weight no title could hide. She thanked the public. She asked for privacy. But between each breath, something deeper lingered. A softness, a finality, a quiet ache that made millions wonder if she believed she'd ever return. The reaction was instant. Worldwide hashtags, crashing servers, news anchors choking up, candlelight vigils reigniting across London, a moment of global grief, but also global unity. But one image lingered the most. William blindsided. Reports confirmed he didn't know the exact timing of the video. And when a child later asked him at a school event, "How is Catherine?" he broke. The future king cried openly. Not behind a palace wall. Not in private. In front of children. In front of teachers. In front of the world. And even the press chose not to broadcast it, because it wasn't a headline. It was heartbreak. Catherine had shattered the illusion of perfection, and in doing so, she changed the monarchy forever. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It became a strength. But while the world prayed, a new problem was forming behind palace doors. A power vacuum. Whispers grew. Schedules shifted. Roles reassigned. Quiet talk of who might temporarily fill Catherine's void. Camilla's circle began pushing forward. Not openly. Not boldly. Carefully under the guise of duty. But Princess and saw through it. Sophie saw through it. They shut down every attempt they could. Because they knew Catherine's absence wasn't a vacancy. It was a wound. Still, the maneuvering continued until William found out. And then the fury came. There will be no substitutes, he declared. No stand-ins. No replacements. She is not gone, and she will not be erased. The palace fractured. Loyalty split. Meetings became battlegrounds. And the public, unaware of the war behind the gold gates, continued lighting candles, unaware of how close the royals were to tearing themselves apart. And then when it felt like the world was preparing to say goodbye, Catherine returned, not in triumph, not in fanfare, but in truth. Another short video, this time with resilience in her eyes. The cancer was in remission, not cured, not over, but beaten back. For now, she thanked the world again. Softly, gracefully, gratefully, William protected her fiercely. No full return to duties. No crowd-heavy appearances. No pressure. Just healing. She re-entered life gently with private meetings, quiet visits, and moments without photographers. And then, one image changed everything. Catherine walking hand in hand with her children, alive, present, real. The world didn't celebrate princesses. They celebrated a mother who survived the storm. But whispers remained. What if it returns? How does the monarchy move forward knowing how fragile its heart truly is? Yet through every fear, one truth remained. Catherine didn't just survive. She transformed everything. She changed palace policy, changed communication strategy, changed how the public connected to royalty, changed how the monarchy faces crisis. She turned vulnerability into a new kind of power. Behind the scenes, she left letters for her children in case she didn't return. Words sealed away, written not by a princess, but by a mother preparing for the unimaginable. The world will never read them, but their existence changed how millions saw her. Catherine is no longer just a future queen. She is the emotional center of a centuries-old institution. Her truth pierced the armor of monarchy and made it human. She didn't simply return. She rebuilt. She redefined. And in many ways, she saved the monarchy's soul. Thanks for reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one. It started quietly, almost too quietly for the world to notice. A shift inside the palace is subtle, sharp, and irreversible. No one questioned the moment it happened. No one understood its weight. But everyone felt something had changed. And in the days that followed, the truth will begin to surface not through palace statements or polished headlines, but through the unraveling of family built on protocol, pressure, and centuries of silence. Because for the first time in years, William and his father weren't at odds. They weren't clashing over duty or strategy. They were two men broken by the same truth, standing side by side. Together, they began crafting an announcement the world wasn't prepared for. Not a royal statement, not a PR move, but a confession. In closed rooms, they rewrote lines. They chose words not for diplomacy, but for honesty. They rehearsed not for perfection, but because one wrong word could trigger panic across a nation already sensing something was deeply wrong. Catherine's story, long protected by layers of silence, was about to emerge, not in whispers, not in carefully shaped half-truths, but with the full weight of reality. And inside the palace, panic ignited. Advisors pushed back, frightened not of the illness, but the truth, frightened of the precedent it would set, frightened of losing control, because they knew something the world did not. Catherine's decline had begun long before the public even suspected. A routine blood test in late 2023, the kind she'd done countless times, revealed irregularities. Small indicators warned things that could be brushed aside by anyone unwilling to look deeper. Doctors flagged them. Aides dismissed them. Don't cause unnecessary alarm, one reportedly said. Stability first. Control first. But Catherine already felt a heaviness in her body, a fatigue she couldn't explain. Her smile remained flawless in public, but behind the scenes she was fading. Then came the collapses. One at a private fundraising dinner, quietly swept under the rug. Another at a children's hospital, hidden before a single camera could turn. Doctors pushed for answers. Tests were ordered. Scans were taken. And finally, clarity arrived, the kind that stops everything. But the palace didn't stop. They were delayed. They debated optics. They strategized. They hid. After the holidays, they said, let the public believe she's resting. But illness doesn't wait for protocol. It doesn't honor tradition. While the monarchy debated headlines, Catherine's body was fighting a war. William saw what others ignored. He begged her to slow down. He begged the aides to be honest. But the image of perfection had already been constructed, polished, flawless, unbreakable. Behind those walls, the family fractured. Loyalty cracked. Some argued the public deserved the truth. Others warned the monarchy couldn't survive two major health crises at once. And so they hid her pain behind carefully timed photos, scripted videos, and a silence that grew heavier by the day, until Catherine did something no royal had ever done. She spoke for herself. No PR team, no palace backdrop, no glossy production. Just Catherine alone in a quiet garden, delivering a truth that stopped the world. For 94 seconds, royalty became human. She confirmed the surgery. She confirmed the cancer. She confirmed the chemotherapy. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had fought alone for far too long. It didn't feel like an update. It felt like a farewell whispered through breaking strength. The world shattered. Social media collapsed under the weight of shared grief. Vigils appeared outside palaces within hours. Heads of state, celebrities, families, children all united in shock, sorrow, and support. And amid that global heartbreak, one image burned into the nation's memory. William blindsided. He hadn't been told exactly when she'd released the video. And when a child asked him how Catherine was doing, his composure broke. His face crumbled. He turned away. And for the first time in public life, the future king cried. Even the press refused to air it. It was too raw, too real. Catherine's truth had pierced the monarchy's centuries-old armor. And inside those palace walls, chaos erupted, because power hates a vacuum. And Catherine's absence created one. Whispers began quiet but sharp. Talks of substitutes, of stand-ins, of expanded roles. Not for duty, but for influence. Camilla's circle moved quickly, quietly. Meetings were reshuffled, engagements reassigned, responsibilities nudged into new hands. Princess and wasn't fooled. Sophie wasn't either. These were women of duty, and they shut down the whispers wherever they surfaced. But the undercurrents continued until William found out, and fury followed. No replacements, no stand-ins, no soft launches, he snapped. She's not gone, and she will not be erased. But inside the palace, trust was already bleeding out. Sides formed, motives shifted. The institution, usually unified, fractured into quiet factions. And just when the world had prepared to mourn, Catherine returned, not with celebration, not with triumph, but with fragile, steady resilience. Another video. Another quiet message. Her treatment had worked. The cancer was inactive. She was in remission. Hope surged, but caution remained. Experts reminded the world, remission is not a cure. William tightened the guard around her life. No full return. No rushing. No palace schedule dictating her recovery. And in small, gentle steps, she re-entered the world privately, quietly, on her own terms. A hospital visit. A meeting with her early childhood team. No cameras. No press. And then the moment that broke every remaining doubt. Catherine holding her children's hands, walking into a small school event. Not as a princess. Not as a future queen. But as a mother who had survived the storm. One quiet photo taken respectfully by another parent spread across the world like sunlight breaking through clouds. But inside the palace, the question lingered like a shadow. What if it returns? And in that uncertainty, the monarchy changed. Policies shifted. Communication rules were rewritten. Transparency became protocol instead of threat. Catherine had done the unthinkable. She forced the institution to confront its fear of fragility. Her journey reshaped the monarchy's emotional core. She showed the world that royalty is not immune to heartbreak, and that vulnerability is not weakness, but strength. Her handwritten notes to families battling illness, her quiet visits, her renewed purpose all carved a new path for what modern royalty could be. Because Catherine didn't just survive, she transformed. She became the emotional anchor of a centuries-old institution, not because of her crown, but because of her humanity. A mother who wrote private letters to her children in case she didn't return, a woman who stood on the edge of loss and still chose hope, a princess who rebuilt herself piece by piece, and in the process, rebuilt the monarchy itself. Her story is not over, but one truth is clear. Catherine didn't simply return. She rebuilt, she redefined, and she restored the monarchy's soul. Thank you for reading. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for what comes next.